Residential Report Writing and Case Studies, Chapter 4, URAR, Page 2, Reconciliation Section. Reconciliation section starts with indicated value by sales comparison approach, $. Going down from that, cost approach, if developed, and it shows $. And then it shows income approach, if developed, $. There's 3 lines below that, probably for information. Then you get to this appraisal is made as is. There's a checkbox on that. And then there's another checkbox next to it that says subject to completion per plans and specifications on the basis of a hypothetical condition that the improvements have been completed. There's another check mark box underneath that says subject to the following repairs or alterations on the basis of a hypothetical condition that the repairs or alterations have been completed. Or then there's another box that says subject to the following required inspection based on the extraordinary assumption that the condition or deficiency does not require alteration or repair. There's 2 lines after that for information. Then it says, based on a complete visual inspection of the interior and exterior areas of the subject property, defined scope of work, statement of assumptions and limiting conditions, and appraisers certification, our opinion of the market value as defined of the real property that is the subject of this report is, and it shows a $, as of, and it's a big old blank spot, which is the date of inspection and the effective date of this appraisal. This is not a basic appraisal principles or basic appraisal procedures course, and is not intended to provide instruction on how to develop the 3 approaches to value. There are individual courses in which you have received or will receive the appropriate level of instruction on valuation procedures. The next to last step in the overall appraisal process is to summarize and reconcile the different approach indicators of value into a final opinion of value for the subject. You will have to summarize the support for your conclusions upon which you based your final opinion of value for the subject property. If you write the final reconciliation clearly and correctly, the client will be able to understand how and why you arrived at your value opinion. Is the subject property appraised in as-is condition, or is the appraisal subject to completion per plans and specifications, based on the hypothetical condition that construction of the home has been completed? or is the appraisal subject to repairs or alterations based on the hypothetical condition that the repairs have been completed? Are there any required inspections to be accomplished by professionals? If so, is the appraisal based on an extraordinary assumption that the particular condition that triggered the inspection does not require repair? In other words, under what conditions did you arrive at the final opinion of value as of a given date? Was there more than one approach to value developed? If so, how were these approaches weighted in arriving at a final value opinion? End of page. Residential report writing and case studies. Chapter 4, URAR, page 3. Page 3 of the URAR form can be used, if necessary, to satisfy the specific requirements of the assignment. There is ample space at the top of the page for additional comments or explanations relevant to the appraisal and/or valuation process, or for additional certification statements. On the bottom half of this page, you will also find space allotted for reporting the cost approach and income approach if either of these approaches would be required for the valuation process. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac do not require the appraiser to develop the cost and income approaches for single-family property appraisals. However, the appraiser may still have to complete the additional approaches if the client requires them. Some lenders/clients require the cost approach to be completed on all appraisals, whether it is relevant to the valuation of the property or not. If one or more of the approaches is not developed, the appraiser must be aware that USPAP requirements have to be considered, and a statement must be inserted into the report explaining the reason for exclusion of the approaches. On page 3, there is also a section reserved for PUD project information if applicable. End of page. Residential report writing and case studies, chapter 4, URAR, page 3, additional comments section. Uniform residential appraisal report. Additional comments is like just a whole page of just lines. This section provides an excellent opportunity for the appraiser to explain in more detail the logic and reasoning for the analysis, conclusions, and opinions used throughout the development process. Also, this section allows additional material to be presented to the lender/client, which may be relevant for the intended use of the appraisal. This section may be used to explain your expanded scope of work, if additional research or analysis was required to develop a credible opinion of value. Additional certifications can also be identified in this section of the report. Additional certifications are allowed by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, providing they do not change the intent of the appraisal assignment. End of page. Residential Report Writing and Case Studies, Chapter 4, URAR, page 3, Cost Approach and Income Approach. Top line says cost approach to value, not required by Fannie Mae. Provide adequate information for the lender/client to replicate the below cost figures and calculations. The next line says support the opinion of site value, summary of comparable land sales or other methods for estimating site value. Underneath that, you have 3 lines to put information. Underneath that, you have a line that starts with estimated, and there's a checkmark box for reproduction, or another checkbox for replacement cost new. Down that line, it says opinion of site value, and then it shows a $sign. The next line down says source of cost data. There's some room to put something in. Down from that, it says dwelling square feet at such and such $sign and equals such and such $sign. Down from that, you have quality rating from cost service. There's a little bit of a space to put something. Then it says effective date, all of cost data. There's a little area. And then there's no word on this part, but it just says square feet, $sign equals $sign. Underneath that, it says comments on cost approach, gross living area calculations, depreciation, etc. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines underneath that to put information in. On the other side, it says garage/carport, square feet at $sign equals $sign. Underneath that, it says total estimate of cost new, and it shows a blank spot, and it shows just equals $sign. Underneath that, it says less, then it says physical, then it says functional, then it says external. Underneath that, it says depreciation equals $sign. Underneath that, it says depreciated cost of improvements, and it says equal $sign. Underneath that, it says as is value of site improvements, and it says equal $sign. Back to the other part, underneath that line, it says estimated remaining economic life, HUD and VA only. There's a spot, and then it says years. Continued on that line, it says indicated value by cost approach, and it says equal $sign. Underneath that, there's a dark lined sentence. It says income approach to value, which is not required by Fannie Mae. Underneath that, this is entering into the income section. It says estimated monthly market rent, and it shows a $sign. Down from that, it says times gross rent multiplier equals $sign. And then it says indicated value by income approach. Underneath that, it says summary of income approach, including support for market rent and GRM. And it shows 2 lines. The cost approach and income approaches are not required by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. However, if you feel that the approaches are beneficial, or if the individual client requests one or both of them, you will have to develop and include them in your appraisal report. The bottom line here is if you develop the approaches, you must acknowledge and report it/them. You also must document how you treated these approaches in the final reconciliation of the indicated values to what extent did you consider them in the final reconciliation of indicated values? Um, then it says cost approach. If you develop the cost approach, you must supply adequate information to support your calculations and subsequent analysis for the cost approach. You will need to summarize the following: support for the opinion of site value. What method was used to determine the site value? The most common method used to determine a residential site value is the sales comparison method. There are other approaches as well, including allocation and market extraction. The appraiser must be able to appropriately support his or her opinion of site value. What is the source of your cost data? Subject's quality rating from the cost data. Effective date of the cost data. Many appraisers use published national cost manuals. One of the most popular cost services is found in the Marshall and Swift Residential Cost Handbook. Other cost services are provided by Means Residential Cost Service and FW Dodge. Fannie and Freddie require cost source information and quality ratings so that clients and or reviewers will be able to replicate the appraiser's cost figures. If the appraiser elects not to use a published cost manual and instead relies on the information from local builders and or data from the appraiser's files, this information must be summarized in the report as appropriate. Income approach. If you developed the income approach, you will need to summarize your opinion of the appropriate market rent for the subject and how the gross rent multiplier, GRM, was obtained. It is inappropriate to simply use a market rent and a selected GRM without a summary explanation and support of how these numbers were derived. A final note on the cost and income approaches. If you do not develop either or both of these approaches, USPAP requires you to explain in your appraisal report the reasons for excluding one or both of these approaches. End of page.